All right. Hello and welcome everyone to our fireside chat concerning the rise of digital media and innovation in supply chain. I'd like to introduce Ms. Sarah Barnes-Humphrey, logistician turned supply chain marketer, as she's known. She's the host of the very popular Let's Talk Supply Chain podcast, which you've probably seen on LinkedIn, a blog and YouTube channel called the SC Supply Chain TV. She's also the co-founder and CEO of Ships Inc. At any time during this discussion, we highly encourage you to leave a chat and questions, comments. If you'd like to be a part of the presentation as well, just raise a little hand and we can invite you on the stage if that's interesting for you. And yeah, without further ado, I'll just go over to you, Sarah, and ask you a quick question.
Sure.
So with as I've read, with the 20 years in the industry, how did you go from freight forwarding to supply chain media and tech?
Well, hello, everybody. I just want to say hi. I'm really excited to be here with Alexa. I think that this is going to be a fun session. And yeah, I forgot that we were allowing people to come up onto stage. So I highly encourage you to come up and chat with us during the session. But going back to your question, so how did I go from working in a 3PL or a freight forwarder into digital marketing, supply chain media? That's a really good question. And so I've been in logistics and supply chain for over 20 years. My dad owned a private 3PL just outside of Toronto. And so I feel like supply chain is in my blood. I feel like I've been hearing about logistics since I was really young at the dinner table, which is kind of fun. And so I spent probably a good 8 years in operations, so I trucking, ocean freight, air freight, warehousing, customs, you name it. I kind of did it all. And then I went into sales. So I was selling cross-docking services, warehousing, ocean freight, air freight, trucking, you name it. I went from operations into selling the services that we were offering. And then I ended up as director of sales and marketing. And at the time, I really just didn't like what was out there as far as, where we were able to tell our story. Like, where could we go to really tell our story, who we are, what we do, how we help our customers. And I was listening to a lot of podcasts at the time. And I don't know if you guys would know him over in Europe, but Lewis Howes, he's got this really, really popular podcast. And I was listening to it at the time. And I thought, well, hey, if he can do it, why can't I do it in supply chain? And so that's how we got started, or that's how I kind of got started. It wasn't even called supply chain media at the time. It was just on a whim. I had asked a guy from my customs department to be my co-host. We called it Two Babes Talk Supply Chain because it's kind of funny. And it kind of took off from there. I ended up, bringing the podcast into my own company. And then, unfortunately, we had to close the doors in the fall of 2017. But I still had podcasts, I still had guests scheduled, and they were paying to come on the show. And so I had to keep it going. I had to learn how to build a website, how to build graphics, how to edit, how to pretty much everything, because I lost my co-host, I lost my team. And in January 2018, we started the Woman in Supply Chain series. And then in April 2018, I rebranded to Let's Talk Supply Chain. And that's kind of how it was born, and how we've sort of snowballed into blogs and videos from there, and really gotten into supply chain media as we've been calling it recently. But at the same time that I was doing that, I also saw a need between forwarders and mid-market shippers, and really wanting to bring them all together in a trusted environment. And so that's where Ships, my marketplace idea, was born. And we literally just launched that last week because we've been in a lot of R&D for the last couple of years.
All right. Well, congratulations on the launch. Yeah. Okay. So you seem to be really interested in innovation. You're taking things that don't exist, like a supply chain podcast, and then also creating innovation in your brand new company. So how do you encourage innovation?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, obviously, with so much content out there right now, right? People are kind of being inundated with content. And so, how do you figure out what they want to hear, what they want to watch, what they want to read about? And so, with Let's Talk Supply Chain, we've got a question of the week every Wednesday that we post to the community. And it's really just to find out their thoughts on what's happening in the community, what's happening in supply chain, what are some of their priorities and things like that. And so through those questions, I'm able to get some of the comments and the answers from the community itself. And so we're able to craft content based on what people are looking for. And that's from Let's Talk Supply Chain. That's how we're innovating. The core principle of the podcast really goes back to why I started it. And so for the episodes that we release on a Monday, we are bringing new innovation to the industry. So we're able to showcase companies and what they're doing in the supply chain community to the supply chain professionals that are having those challenges and looking for those types of solutions. And so that's how we're kind of keeping innovation also top of mind, is through that show. But we're creating mini series for companies. We're doing live streams. So we're constantly thinking up different ways of getting in front of the supply chain community and what that looks like. On the ships front, because we've just launched, obviously, we are looking to work with the forwarders and the shippers on our platform to really provide us with the feedback that we need to build the features moving forward. Because the platform is for them. It's not really for me. So it's not really about what I know and what I've been through, although, some of those elements have been put into the platform, but it's really about them and what's going to make their life easier. And so we're going to be able to build that more robust system based on the feedback that we're getting, but from both sides, not from one over the other.
Right. Yeah, I'm seeing from both sides. There's the listening and the delivering of the needs here.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's super important, right? Because every organization in a supply chain is really important to moving those goods, or, getting the goods from supplier to end consumer. And so if anybody's listened to my show, they know that I say collaboration is the future of business. Pretty much on every single show. And I'm sure people are getting tired of it, but I truly, truly believe it. I mean, there's only one way forward, and that's to win together and figure out what that looks like.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of slogans and catchphrases, I want to get a little bit back into the marketing topic. So do you have a digital media strategy? You've got so many things going on. Do you got a strategy there?
Well, I kind of build strategies for other companies. We do have a strategy. I mean, obviously we've got all of the content mediums, right? So we've got the podcast which is audio. We've got our YouTube channel, which is video. We've got the live streams that are video, the webinars, those are video. And then obviously we've got the written word. And so as far as our digital marketing strategy, we have a heavy content calendar that keeps us very, very organized as to what is coming out when, because obviously I've got different release dates for different projects that I'm working on, and when those are going to be delivered and when they're going to be released and put out to the public. But I'm constantly innovating. So at the end of September, we're going to be announcing something. Well, actually, maybe middle of September, we're going to be announcing something pretty cool that's going to encourage more supply chain management students from universities and colleges. And then middle of October, I've got a new show coming out about diversity, which is going to be done in a very different, cool way as well. So constantly, coming up with different ideas and putting that out in front of the community.
Okay, wonderful, brilliant. And we've got our first question, by the way, regarding marketing as well. Well, I guess this goes along with your content plan. Maybe if there has been disruption, has COVID opened new doors and ways of using marketing in the industry?
Yeah, so Peter, that's a great question. It definitely has. So we've recently started these mini series. So, I was talking to a lot of people in the community about what they wanted to do with their marketing strategies. And some were talking about, starting their own podcast, but then we were talking about really what's involved in that and how much work. And so that's where the mini series kind of came about, was during those conversations as COVID had started. And so the 4-part mini series gives them the opportunity to have their own sort of podcast series within Let's Talk Supply Chain. So that's really opened up some doors. It's made me take a look at some other social media platforms that I think that we can utilize in a lot of our marketing strategies to encourage the next generation into supply chain, which is really exciting. And obviously during COVID, there's been a lot of disruption on the diversity side. And so that's prompted me to start that diversity show that we're going to be coming out with in October.
All right. Just out of curiosity, you mentioned different social media platforms. Which ones are you referring to?
That's a secret. That's a secret.
Oh, more secrets. Okay. Just let us know where and when we can find out this secret.
I will. I definitely will.
Okay, good. Okay, so we've got a couple more questions here. Gulnari would like to know, and how did the podcast landscape in our industry change over the last years?
That's a great question. So when I started, I think there was 25 supply chain podcasts, which most people are surprised at, right? Because that was back in 2017. I don't know what the number is now, but it's a lot higher. I don't know if you've noticed during COVID, but a lot of people have turned to podcasts as a content medium. And so you're seeing a lot more new shows coming about. And coming to the forefront. I think that only time will tell, right? Things have changed for us during COVID. What does that look like when a vaccine comes in, and are we going back to actual office spaces? Is that going to change some of the timetables that people have on a daily basis? Right now, they might have a lot more time because they're at home. And so can they keep that up? Can they keep it consistent? Because with podcasts, consistency is absolutely key.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and I guess that sort of ties into the next question from Alexander. Would you advise the logistics technology providers and startups to start their own podcasts, or this medium does not work for everyone?
I really think it depends on your company and your resources and what your goals are, what your marketing goals are, and what you're looking to get out of it. It is a lot of work. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of work. You have to be consistent, right? So are you going to do it once a week? Are you going to do it every 2 weeks? Is it going to be interview style? Is it not going to be interview style? Who's going to host it? One of the things that I talk to people about a lot is, if you do find a host within your company and they leave, what are you going to do? What's your backup plan? Right. So just a couple of things to think about, because it's all exciting to start a podcast and start anew, but you've got to think of the long-term plan and the long-term strategy and what that means. And the work that goes into it, right? So there's editing, the host has got to write a script. They've got to have an idea of what they're going to talk about on every episode. A week goes by very, very quickly. If you are going to do it weekly, if you have to get guests, there's a lot of back and forth, scheduling interviews and things like that. So again, it really just depends on your resources, what your marketing goals are, and if it is something that you want to do, or if you want to dip your toe in. That's why we started the mini podcast series, is so people could dip their toe in, see what it's like to work with us and what it's like to produce a 4-part series. And then you could kind of take it from there.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that seems like I like that, dip your toe in it to get a little taste of what it's like.
Yeah.
In terms of goals, now I'm just curious, in terms of goals, you said it depends on what your marketing goals are. So what marketing goals do podcasts achieve for you?
Well, it really depends on what podcast that you're considering and who you're talking to. So,
Mhm.
a lot of the podcasts out there, you will be interviewed, but you might not be able to go into as many details as you would like about your company.
Okay.
So if it's brand awareness that you're looking for, those are a good one. If it's brand awareness and potentially lead gen, a podcast like ours is a good one because when you come on the show, you're talking about who you are, what exactly you do, real life examples of how you've helped a customer and the future of your business. And those are really the questions that you're answering when you go in front of a potential customer for the first time. And so, from a brand awareness standpoint, you're utilizing our network to get the brand out there. But then, what you can also do with the episode is you can use it as a sales tool. So, you can send it out to a potential customer in an
Mhm.
informal manner, right? It doesn't look like paid. It doesn't look like, and it's not salesy, it's very conversational. And so, you're sending it out to a potential customer and they're listening to it and getting a better understanding of how they can work with you. And a
Mhm.
lot of our clients have really been able to close business that way.
Right. So
Yeah.
speaking of clients and business, so we've got another question from Peter. When do we see the first podcast from one of the biggest shipping lines or forwarders?
I don't know. You'd have to ask them.
I'm not. Are you interviewing anyone from shipping lines or freight forwarders?
So, shipping lines, I would love to have somebody from a shipping line on the podcast. I've spoken to them a few times, but haven't really been able to get them on the show yet. As far as forwarders, we have had some forwarders on the show. Apex Logistics, they were just recently on the show. And we've had a couple of others since then because really at the end of the day, forwarders also want to get out their message and talk about who they are and what they do as well. And it's a fun and unique way to be able to do that.
All right. Well, speaking of shipping lines, the networking is still open for the DCS, and Hapag Lloyd, Ralph Beluza, the CDO, gave a keynote speech earlier. So
Nice.
maybe you can reach out to him, and we can see him on the Let's Talk Supply Chain soon.
I'm going to say hi and tell him to contact me.
Yes. Okay, so now I kind of want to go in a different direction now and ask you a little bit about going back to social media. I know you won't give me any secrets, but I think LinkedIn seems to be a very popular platform for the industry. And is LinkedIn, in your experience, really effective in growing a professional network?
Oh, yes. Hands down, LinkedIn is definitely where you need to be. So, from our experience, we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. By far, LinkedIn has been the best platform for us, not only as a podcast, but also as a technology platform as well. LinkedIn really gives us the opportunity to reach those in the network that we want to be able to reach. So, supply chain professionals are very active on LinkedIn. They're liking, they're engaging, they're commenting, they're sharing. My advice for anybody that's looking to grow their followers over on LinkedIn is that you not only have to do that from the business standpoint, but you also have to do that from the personal standpoint. And so you want to encourage engagement. And so when you find an article or you find something that you really enjoy and you want to share it with your network, when you're sharing it, make sure that you're putting your own thoughts to it so that your community gets an idea of what you're trying to say and why you liked this and why you're sharing it with them. That one is really, really important. Engaging through commenting is also really important as well. So what I say to a lot of supply chain professionals is just get started. Some people don't like to leave comments. Some people aren't sure whether they leave comments, but getting started. So for example, our question of the week every Wednesday morning is a safe place. It's an easy place to put in an answer. You can read others' comments and comment on theirs and really start a dialogue and a conversation. The LinkedIn messaging portion is really good as well. Don't connect with somebody and then send them a sales pitch. That doesn't work well. But really, following them, engaging with what they're putting out there as far as content, and then reaching out to them through message and saying, hey, I'd really like to talk to you about this. And the same thing is for people that are looking for work, right? You can connect with somebody that could be in charge of the team that you're looking to join, and you could reach out to them and say, hey, and ask them some questions. If there's an open position, you can say, what are you really looking for, when you're looking for a candidate for this particular opening. And so you can really start a dialogue with them. And so that's what I think is really great about LinkedIn. And Twitter has increased its popularity with supply chain professionals. Really quick, really easy. I know Eric Johnson over at the JOC, Journal of Commerce, he uses that a lot to get his thoughts out. And I know that there's a lot of engagement. People are going back and forth on Twitter a lot more as well. So I would say those really are the two biggest platforms for supply chain professionals and companies to really engage in.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting to hear about Twitter. I think LinkedIn was quite clear. But if I understood what you meant with LinkedIn, you're saying that before you engage in a dialogue or you give somebody your sales pitch, you're meant to build a personality, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage anybody to really build a personal brand. And you can do that really easily through LinkedIn. You don't have to write blogs and put out content and all that. You really just need to be involved and start networking online. What I meant by that was if you connect with somebody and it's somebody that you want to connect with on a sales level, let's say, connect with them first, start seeing what they're posting, and start engaging with what they're doing. So they start seeing your name in different places. They see that you're engaged with what they're putting out there. And then you can approach them from a messaging standpoint.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, in talking about LinkedIn and talking about marketing in general, it seems that marketing oftentimes in the industry is overlooked or not worth the cost. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I would start seeing marketing as an investment center and not a cost center. A lot of times we're looking at marketing as a cost center, but really nowadays it's, especially with COVID and not being able to do the in-person networking, it's really going to be your lifeline to the community and getting your community engaged with what you're doing. And so it's got to be an investment center. But again, it goes back to your goals. Are you looking for lead gen? Are you looking for brand awareness? Are you looking for a little bit of both? Initially, you really need to get your brand out there. People need to see your brand over and over and over again. We all know from a sales standpoint that it takes multiple touches for people to really start recognizing your brand and understanding what you do, and then finally reaching out to you and saying that they want to work with you. So what are the unique ways that you're doing that, and how are you utilizing marketing? And so that's when I say, when you're looking at your strategy and you're looking at who to partner with, what are they offering you? Is it just brand awareness? Is it just marketing? Or are you able to turn those marketing pieces into a sales tool and empower your sales team with the different pieces and unique pieces of content that you're putting together to send out to potential customers in different ways to get noticed?
Right, and you mentioned COVID again, so I want to just bring that. I mean, the whole theme of most of the sessions today is moving forward post COVID, right? So I think we're all ready for it to be over. And so looking forward, do you think that content marketing podcasts are going to be just as important as they are right now, moving forward?
I do. Yeah, I do. I think the way people are listening to podcasts have definitely changed, right? Because a lot of people were listening to them on their commute, and now you don't have a commute anymore. So when are they listening? They're listening when they're walking their dogs. They're listening while they're maybe in bed drinking some wine. I don't know. Their listening habits have just changed. I think depending on what that new normal looks like, right? Because we don't even know what that looks like and whether you will or you won't have a commute. I think those habits are also here to stay. And those are habits that can be on top of the commute, depending on if your commute comes back. And so I don't see them. I don't see them going away. I see them actually enhancing more of what you're doing. And again, depending on how you're using it, right, can really make a difference in either your personal development or in what you're doing as a business to get your brand out there.
All right. So we talked a bit about podcasts and we talked about social media. Are there any other outlets that you would highly recommend, especially for startups, to get their brand out there?
Yeah, I think the use of video is we need to use video more often. And I think, you can film a video really doing anything. So the other day I had to film a video for an upcoming conference. I literally used Zoom. We had the conversation. I put it into iMovie, added an intro at the beginning. I added a tile screen at the end. And so, there's apps like those that are making it very, very easy for you to be able to produce some video. I think having an animated logo is really, really important because then you can add it to any video element that you have. If you are going to use video, make sure you have captions, right? Because people can't necessarily watch it, let's say when they're in the office or what have you, with the volume up. And so they watch a lot of video silently. And so they're able to read the captions and still understand what you're talking about in the video.
That's a super great tip.
Yeah, captions are really important. Really important.
Okay, and so you said you immediately said video. So why video? What is the power of video?
People will, you're engaging with them right away visually, right?
Okay.
And when I say video, I guess live stream could be included in that too, right? Because I do a lot of pre-recorded video with captions and things like that. And then I also do a lot of live streams where people can catch me live at a certain time of the day. Like we do Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern, we do a Thoughts and Coffee. So it's a little bit more lighthearted. We're talking about the hot topics in supply chain, but we're also talking about life in general. And I'm drinking my coffee, so different ideas like that. But video really, outside of audio and the written word, is definitely eye-catching and something to think about.
Okay. We have another question from Gulnari. She wants to know, is there space for traditional marketing left, or is digital marketing taking over the industry?
That's a really good question. I don't know if I am necessarily the expert to really dive deep into that and answer it. From a traditional marketing perspective, I guess you're talking about like magazines and different things
pamphlets,
like that.
brochures.
Yeah, I think a lot of magazines have gone online. I think also part of that traditional marketing is the in-person conferences, and that's really going to depend on what happens and whether we bring those back. The one thing I'm going to say about in-person conferences is event organizers, and you probably know this, have a lot of challenges when it's going to come to bringing back in person, right? Getting insurance to really put on the event is going to be very, very difficult. If there's a vaccine, who gets a vaccine, who doesn't, who has it, who doesn't, how do you vet that? So there's a lot of challenges coming back to those in person. And so I think we really need to find a way forward and have a digital marketing strategy on top of what you're doing traditionally. I hope that answered the question. I know we're getting down to time, so.
Yeah, we have just about a minute left. So we're actually right on time. But yeah, as an events organizer, I'm looking forward with a bit of more optimism that we are able to meet and have in-conference meetings. But this kind of meeting I quite like as well.
Yeah, well, I like the one-on-one meetings. It really makes the online experience, the virtual experience, really good. In person, I think is going to be more regional, and they're going to be smaller networking events. That's just my opinion. Anyways, I really appreciate you guys having me on today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out of your marketing, out of your networking schedule. And yeah, enjoy the rest of the event. And thank you so much.
Thank you. If anybody wants to get in touch, it's letstalksupplychain.com or ships.com.
She also has a booth for everyone who is on the platform. Make sure you visit the booth, and Ships is there, and you can leave her some comments, questions, and learn a bit more about Ships and Let's Talk Supply Chain.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.